Welcome to the Capital City Crew podcast. Join your hosts Jeff, Owen, Josh, and Herman as they dive deep into the game of Malifaux. Explore sophisticated strategies and creative combinations, but always remember in Malifaux, bad things happen.
All right. Hello, folks, and welcome back to another exciting episode of the Capital City Crew podcast. I'm your host, Owen Best, and I am here joined in studio with Jeff and Josh. Herman is unfortunately away in baby jail. We hope that someday he will be back. But
I keep telling him adoption is an option, but apparently I'm a terrible person when I do that.
I told him to give the baby NyQuil and come play with us, but he doesn't.
I'm not suggesting he goes work in the mines this time. He's a little young for that.
Yeah,
But,
give him a
you know,
couple, like 6 months at least.
6 months. 6 months.
Yeah, in 6 months he can become a creepy child. He can become a plague spreader. There's so many options in Malifaux for little children.
And he could come out of the mines with a tattoo that says "Mom" on it. His mom will be thrilled.
Just give him a big cleaver and a diaper.
And a large stuffed toy.
Yeah, and he's good to go.
Wonderful role models.
Yeah,
Wonderful role models all around.
I propose on the show that we now refer to Herman's baby as Cade.
Oof.
Oh, man. Yeah, that would have been a great Halloween. Happy Halloween, folks, by the way. We're recording this the day after. Hopefully everyone had a great time. The weirdest of holidays. So we are here to talk to you today, to talk to Jeff, really.
The worst.
Yeah, well, I mean, we do our best. But yeah, we're hanging with Mr. Cooper today. We're going to talk all about the apex predator of the Explorer Society and learn about why Jeff hates the first Lord Cooper but loves the second Lord Cooper.
Strongly dislike First Lord Cooper.
Yep. But we'd love to hear from you all in Facebook, in the comments, by email, by any way to add us or mention us. Tell us whether you like the first Cooper or the new Cooper or both Coopers. We'd love to hear about it.
And we mean that. We would really love to hear your guys' feedback, because when we post these things and nobody responds to it, we wonder if it's really worth it.
No, we don't. We know it's worth it.
People do listen to it. So, so we have that. And we had our brief number one podcast in Eastern Europe for 1 week. But anyways, before we get into hanging with Mr. Cooper, Josh is here to tell us about a spicy, disgusting, gross tech talk, a strategy that he employed in the most recent post-World Series Vassal League. Just a brief shout out to the Vassal Discord group. If you were looking to play and you are still stuck quarantined like some of us, you should check out Vassal. You should check out the Vassal Discord because they organize tournaments and events all the time. And they're a great source of awesome activities, and that group is fantastic. So, Josh, take it away. Tell us about your absolutely gross and disgusting play that you did.
Just because it's McMorning doesn't mean it's gross and disgusting.
Yes, it does.
Okay, maybe it does. No, this was the last round of last month's Vassal tournament. It was actually a McMorning 1 versus McMorning 2 pseudo mirror match for the bronze podium position. I was McMorning 2, my opponent was McMorning 1s. It was a great game. But in it, I got to leverage one of the most enjoyable things that you can get from McMorning, which is a no target number obey, which by way of the nurses and their seduction ability. Normally, seduction found on multiple different models. Strips focus, gives the model distracted. Nurses get the small favorite trigger. Mask trigger, model has to be poisoned. But then it's just basically an obey. There's no target number on seduction, so as long as you have the mask, which you can casually get for nurses using tools for the job, you can just obey models. Friendly ones can just relent and you automatically pass, even if you have the Black Joker. Very easy to do. Downside is it gives you distracted. Fortunately, as if planned when they were assembling the models in this crew, the Rogue Necromancy just has a built-in positive flip on his attack. So if you're willing to just suck up only making a regular stat 6 attack instead of a stat 6 positive flip attack, you can just get 2 free extra attacks out of your Rogue Necromancy each turn. More if you really want to, because you can take McMorning 2 and Plastic Surgery Seduction onto other models. It's less flexible because they don't have tools for the job like nurses do, but you can just put multiple attacks through the same model. And the neat thing about Small Favor as opposed to Obey, there's no once per turn restriction on it. You can just spam it. You can just spam it.
Yeah, I was just looking at that for the once per turn. I was like, nope. No, it doesn't have it because it normally is somewhat costly having poison 3. We're giving them distracted, but yeah,
needing the trigger. But you
Rogue
can just
Necro,
bake in the trigger. Yep. So that was used in the Rogue Necro versus Rogue Necro showdown, where Rogue Necro came out ahead. It was pretty good. There are other models that you can also do this with if you take like Bête Noire, because she also has a built-in positive flip on her melee attack, and she actually works really well in a McMorning 2 crew. So
yeah, but how often is she going to have poison 3?
You can just put poison 3 on her. It's like 1 damage at the end of the round if you just have poison 3, poison 4 on her. I guess poison 4 is 2 damage, but it's easy enough to do. Honestly, if you're not careful, you could just do it by accident.
Doesn't she have like 4 life or something?
She has 7.
Oh,
she has 7 and built-in fade away on defense and willpower. So you got to be cognizant of what's around and what can threaten her. But most things won't get multiple swings on her unless she's stunned, which was a risk in the McMorning versus McMorning matchup because nurses have stun on their melee attack. But yeah, McMorning 2 really likes those nurses. Rogue Necromancy really likes those nurses. All in all, very solid. Great way to focus a lot of AP through a single, very strong model in the Rogue Necromancy.
Well, so I'm looking at the Rogue Necro, and with its pouncing strike trigger, you can't get it off the Obey because it's an attack generated by a trigger. But if you include its own turn, it's potentially attacking 6 times with a stat 6, 3, 4, 5. Like that's pretty rough damage output. When you played this and when you've done it before, are you typically using it for the melee attack, or do you ever use the vomit projectile attack?
Largely the melee attack. The vomit did come up since it was 2 melee beater crews. We had a very cagey approach on the first turn, but largely min 3 stat 6 positive flip attack is the way to go. Duping it with McMorning, putting it on other models. Nurse is also great with tools for the job. If you put the plastic surgery attack onto the nurse, they can again discard for a mask to auto trigger pouncing strike to get 4 AP out of your 6 soulstone model. Very efficient.
That seems good.
I will say the Rogue Necromancy's projectile vomit attack is one of the few models where projectile vomit is actually a decent attack with it, because it can do necrotic decay to itself to do a min 3 damage on it. So it's not horrible on him. For the rest of them, it is kind of horrible.
Well, then you can heal itself with the poison,
Right.
when it would suffer poison.
So I think it's really good on Drowned, because you can fire that into a crowd of incorporeal models, and you don't really care where the blasts go. All your incorporeal stuff takes 0 from that, and as a result, don't take the distracted and don't take the poison. And you can spread around distracted and poison, and with the Drowned, also create hazardous terrain. Good for Cry 1, who can summon Drown. I haven't tried them in Cry 2 yet. Normally they're really slow, but she makes everything really fast.
Are we talking about McMorning or are we talking about Cooper?
I'm talking about models with projectile vomit. Maybe if you had some of those, it would be better.
I do. I've had 2 kids. They had projectile vomiting at some point.
Oh, always getting back to that. Look forward to that, Herman.
Hold on a second. Shout out to Weird. Can we make Baby Kate have a projectile vomit attack?
I mean, it seems on theme that a baby would projectile vomit.
Right? Like Exorcist style. That would be awesome.
Yeah, that would.
You have questionable taste. Questionable taste.
I'm not eating the vomit.
Although it is great flavor.
All right, onward to Cooper.
Yep. All right, cool. Well, thank you for that. Well, actually, wait. Before we move on, did you win?
Yes.
You got the bronze?
I got the bronze.
Yeah.
It's a close game. Really enjoyable.
All right.
Second place loser. Oh, wait. Good job.
Good job, Josh. That's awesome.
Womp womp.
You are placing more in tournaments than any of the rest of us, so congrats.
So I will say, in a lot of Malifaux tournaments, the saying of "you're not first, you're last" does not apply, because even last place gets the wooden spoon a lot of the times. So if you're last place, you actually achieve more than if you weren't anywhere other than first.
I mean, I would take third over last, personally, but that's just me. But anyways, let's move on to being at the top, if you will, the pinnacle, or in other words, the apex.
Oh.
Wah, 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 and talk about Mr. Cooper 1. But before we do that, one quick shout out to our friends at Bigger Hat, the Malifaux website, biggerhat.net, for their recent update. Actually, I think it's like a month ago, but their somewhat recent update that shows both cards at the same time. It is super awesome and fantastic. So if any of y'all are listening, great job. Looks awesome, and it's a great reference for all of the spoiled cards that are not yet in the app, although perhaps by the time you're listening to this episode, they will be in the app. We shall see. I don't know when they're actually adding them. But anyways, yes. Lord Cooper, take it away. Jeff, give us the kind of like high level. Who's
Elevator
Lord Cooper?
pitch.
Yeah, what's the pitch for Lord Cooper? Like, why do you want him / Apex in general?
So you're hanging with Lord Cooper, or hanging with Mr. Cooper, if you like guns and you like beasts. If you're a big fan of hunting, a big game hunting, you saw those people out in the savannah and you wanted to go hunt some lions yourself. It's basically the thought process behind Lord Cooper. He enjoys going out and hunting the game of the game of all of Malifaux and the wilds of Malifaux. His prized hunt is actually Marcus in the lore. He's trying to hunt down and track Marcus so he can kill him. And I don't know if he wants to like stuff him and have a Marcus doll or what, but that's who he's after.
And he is like Mecha Teddy Roosevelt crossed with like Get Out Bradley Cooper in like his look.
Yeah, he does have that banjo playing look to him. Or like, how y'all doing?
Oh, he just looks like stately. Teddy Roosevelt is the best description for him.
Bradley Whitford, not Bradley Cooper.
I was supposed to say Bradley Cooper.
You were like, what? No.
Like with Lady, is he out there on the hunt with Lady Gaga singing to him?
No. All right. But yeah, cool. So, okay. So guns check. That's good. We like guns.
Guns and beasts.
I don't usually get beasts in Outcast, so that's kind of cool. Yeah. So let's talk about OG Mr. Cooper a little bit. I know you weren't a huge fan. I had always heard him described as a good master for people getting into the game. I don't know if you agree or disagree with that take, but it's a take I've heard.
I could see that. And the problem is, if you start off with original Lord Cooper, just getting into the game, I can see that as being a good thing, but also a bad thing, because you're eventually going to start losing because of the nuances within his crew. So the original Lord Cooper, he focuses on the adversary condition, trying to make his crew better by leveraging predatory instincts. I'm not going to read off to you what it does or read off to you cards, but you get to swap a negative to the attack for a positive to the damage or vice versa. And that's good. His gun is a very good attack. But generally with him on a good turn, you're only going to get 2 shots off. You're usually going to do something like move, shoot, focus, and then he uses bonus action to shoot again. And that's usually going to be what his turn is consisting of.
Those are really big shots. That's a 3-5-7 damage spread, and if you get that adversary on it, you get that positive flip to damage. That is
so. Right now,
ignoring cover, range 14, stat 6. Like, this seems pretty good.
So yeah. I'm only I'm not gonna go into the rest of his crew, but him by himself is actually not that great of a master, and the gun is good. So I'll go over some of the good things that he has for him. First, his melee attack is only good for like something on a minion or an enforcer level, not necessarily for a master. It's got this neat part to it where he gets to ignore train mark, or he gets to remove a train marker to receive a plus to this action. Well, the train markers that you make within this crew are severe, hazardous, and the hazardous is 1 damage and 1 injured. So you're usually not going to be within 1 inch of those because they're dangerous to Cooper himself as well. And then if you want to remove it, like you typically want those around for a reason. But it does a damage track of 2, 3, 5. The main trigger is pretty cool on it where you can make him discard a card. His good attribute, though, is his gun. It's got an awesome damage track of 3, 5, 7. It ignores cover. The downside to his gun is that it does not ignore friendly fire and it does not ignore concealment, which is a big problem because if you have, as an example, somebody from the Ivan crew that's in combat, you're not hitting it with Cooper because you're still going to be, even if you put adversary on it, you're still going to be at a negative. And the fact that it doesn't ignore either concealment or friendly fire is genuinely a problem for Lord Cooper. I would have liked to have seen him ignore one of those two. Maybe he ignores friendly fire or something along that line. But that's the reason why his gun is not overly good. But his major downside is that the eyes on the prize ability, he can't get distracted, which is good. But he also cannot take a disengage action, which means that when somebody gets into melee with him, he's stuck there until he kills it or somebody else moves him. And as I mentioned, his melee attack is not all that great. It's a 2, 3, 5. So if you get stuck in with something like Eric from Outcasts, who just rocket jumps over them and stands next to you, you're doing 1 damage to him each time. And there's not a whole lot Cooper can do to get away, and he's effectively shut down for that entire game.
I have based Cooper with Anya like Karen, and there's just nothing he can do to get out.
Yep.
Because I think he has some models in the crew or can get access to things with I've got your back. Can't do much with the hostile work environment around you.
Yep. There's a lot of ways that you can shut this Cooper down where, he's got armor, so he can live. He's immune to distracted. That's all good things. But his next attack, he can only do his Nitro Express Rifle once per turn, twice if you use his bonus action for it. His explosive ordnance isn't that great of a shot. And what's really weird is the Express Rifle has a 14-inch range, whereas explosive ordnance only has an 8-inch range. Those two things don't add up together. We already mentioned he doesn't want to be in melee, so you probably want to keep him at a max range if possible. So you're not going to be able to shoot with the explosive ordnance after you shoot with your Express Rifle. So he's very kind of disjointed in how he works. His foul mouth motivation is actually pretty good, but it only has a 6-inch range. So this master that you want to keep kind of at a larger range so you don't get into melee now has these shorter range abilities that you usually aren't using a whole lot. Foul mouth motivation is good on the first turn because you can use the trigger to make it move your guys. But in general, he's like a weird combination of things that don't work together. And I've never really liked him because of that. Like, I like his crew. I just don't like him. And he feels like a broken Rube Goldberg. I'll mention some of the other abilities that you can do later when I get to his crew that help him a little bit more. But it's still all very Rube Goldberg-y, and it doesn't work out well.
So, if the other guy is too complicated, doesn't quite mesh together, what did they change to make him work?
So I love the new Lord Cooper, Huntmaster. And the reason why is several of the things that I just mentioned, they completely 180'd on. They went from him where he just tries to increase the damage of the crew around him to where he is actually a support master for his crew. He still has a good damage output. His hunter's bow is still a 2-4-5 damage track, and he can still give out adversary beast every time he shoots something, which is pretty cool. His bow ignores friendly fire, which is one of the highlights that I mentioned before. So he can shoot into combats without those negatives. He doesn't ignore cover anymore, but that's fine because I would rather hit you at a negative than not hit you at all. He has depths of Malifaux, so when we mentioned those pit traps earlier, they don't affect him anymore. So he can walk in and out of pit traps. He can stand in a pit trap to keep himself protected, where if you want to come into the pit trap, every time you take an action, you're taking 1 damage and 1 injured, and that's usually a death sentence for you. He has lead the hunt, so every time he obeys a model, or every time a model makes an action outside of its turn generated by a friendly effect, he gets +1 to its duel. And the big thing he has is Scent for Blood, which several other models have right now. But it's after he damages an enemy model, you can discard a card to make a friendly beast take an attack against the enemy model, and the damage flip on it is a negative. But you know,
I think you're leaving out stealth. Having a master, a ranged gun master with stealth.
Well, it's not
epic. That's so good.
It's not just the stealth. So he has stealth, so you can't target him from 6 inches away. But he can also put up his own pit trap markers, which I already mentioned. This crew heavily focuses on these pit traps. But he's got a trigger with his pit trap of smoke screen, where until the end of the phase, enemy models that are within 1 inch of the pit trap marker, which is a 50 millimeter marker, suffer a negative to the first action they make while they're around that marker. So if he puts it in between him and you have to get within 6 inches of him in order to target him, there's that pit trap there. And then if you manage to rush in on him, you're at a negative for your attack and you're taking the damage. He's just overall better protected than just having armor. So in general, he's so much better. But his attack, he has more options too. Call of the Wild, where he can make a friendly beast take a move action, or a built-in trigger to where they can make a charge action. And then the Scent of Blood combined with his hunter's bow, where he can make a model's attack afterwards, beasts specifically. He still has the built-in trophy hunter trigger with his hunter's bow, so if he kills you, he still gets to drop that ski marker. But he also has My Loyal Servant on it that's on a ram, where he can heal the model, which the Malosaurus Rex usually takes a lot of damage, and he can heal it back up. So in general, the new Lord Cooper is a full package of good things. The only thing that I would have liked to have changed is I would like to swap the skinning knife for the previous melee attack, where I can get rid of a marker that's near him to do a positive to damage. But you can't be in a perfect world with all of this stuff. It's
I'm sorry, your amazing range master didn't also get an amazing gun attack. Who do you think he is? Or amazing melee attack. Who do you think he is? Leviticus? Seriously.
Nerf Leviticus. But the bad parts about the second Lord, or the first Lord Cooper, I think we went through. First Lord Cooper, I will say his triggers that he has on that gun are outstanding, where he can ignore hard to kill and demise abilities. And there's another trigger that's really good on it. I forgot what it was. This
drop
Lord
a ski
Cooper,
marker. Oh no, but new one.
No,
has
the new one has that. He has another one that's
draw 2 cards, discard a card.
That's it, where he gets a little bit of card draw in it. The new Lord Cooper, his downside is that he requires positioning. He has to position a little bit better than the old Lord Cooper. And his crew becomes very card hungry with the Scent of Blood ability and a lot of the other discards in his crew. So you're going to have to include things like the Vitagi Huntsman to get some of that card draw.
Yeah, did he have enough to keep up with it? Is there enough card draw in the crew to adequately fuel a crew that is not only discarding 2-3 cards around for Scent of Blood, but also making all those extra attacks? Or are you at that point just relying on top decking an adversary to actually land the hits?
You're usually relying on adversary to land some of the hits. Most of the things in his crew are hitting at a high stat value, but the Vatagi Huntsmen do give him some card draw. He's got a couple of other ways to draw some cards as well. But in general, you're looking at deleting a model or two a turn, and then your hand's going to be gone. So you're going to be looking at the pit traps to help protect your guys to keep them away from you.
And I imagine the severe injury trigger on the bow is helping out in the overall accuracy, making even those low top decks be good when your opponent's stat is 3, 2.
Exactly. They're not just the severe injury trigger on his bow, but also the traps causing injured as well. Is like you're usually hitting at a low amount. There are other things in his crew that also pump out injured as well. So injured is a running theme. Making your opponent discard things is a running theme, as well as getting surprise attacks out of nowhere is also one of his themes. So he's very good at. He's kind of a pseudo obey master in how he works and how he supports his crew. So and if anyone that's listened to the podcast before, I love obey masters. So he kind of fits into that niche.
I have to say, yeah, looking at new Cooper and old Cooper side by side, I can definitely see the appeal. Like and you didn't even mention on new Cooper's melee attack, it has a trigger to push the model he attacked towards a pit trap, so potentially pushing them away so he can then use his gun.
I was going to mention that later after we talk about our core, but that's one of the good things is if he gets stuck in a melee, like old Cooper, you get into melee, he's just kind of there unless somebody else in his crew comes around to help you out. This Cooper, if he gets stuck in melee, first because you're usually laying down traps, he can hit you and push you towards a trap. He does have the option of disengaging if he wants, or he can look at another beast that's 6 inches away and say, "You charge this thing." Like there's a lot of things he can do when he's stuck in melee, where the other one is literally, "I'm going to hit you with my thing that's going to hit you for very little." Like it's not a good trade-off, and this Cooper is just phenomenally better than the other one.
When he's +1 move and +1 wound, so it seems overall better. Let's come back to this when we talk about overall strategy after the core crew. But I am curious if there's a time when you ever take OG Lord Cooper, or like is he just straight up better version? So, but hold that, and why don't we go to a quick break, and we come back, we'll talk about the not necessarily great, but certainly one of the most unique totems that there is in Malifaux. So stick with us, and we'll be right back.
Hello. Do you like our podcast and want to ensure that it continues to run? Maybe you want to hear our outtakes on unedited footage. Or perhaps you're just flush with cash and you like being generous. Either way, we've set up a Patreon just for you. If you like us, please consider donating. Our Patreon can be located in the show notes. If not, we're all pretty sure that it's Harmon's fault. Either way, if you like our show, go ahead and leave us a comment. Thanks.
All right, welcome back from that exciting break, and we're going to talk to you all.
None of that will see the light of day.
Yeah, none of the stuff we just recorded. But yeah, welcome back, and we're going to talk about the core Apex crew. Jeff's going to tell us what his always take models are, and then he's going to talk about his various, somewhat long list of tech picks. But we're going to get it started with the totems. So the totems for Lord Cooper, I have to say, one of the more unique ones in the game, and
yeah, they're a pain in the butt.
They went through a lot of iterations. We can't really talk about the original beta of this, but I do remember like these guys always from the start were like, oh wow, this is a really interesting concept of like deadliest game, like they're sort of almost like helping your opponent. Like they went through a lot of iterations, but tell us about where they ended up, the runaways, what they do, what these crazy wild totems are like.
Sure. So you have to take 3 of them because you have to. And at actually, you know what? Do you have to? Is there a rule that says you have to take a totem? That's an interesting question.
That is a good question. I'll look this up while you keep telling us about them.
All right, but assuming that you have to take them, I don't think you actually have to take a totem. But assuming that you have to take them, at best they're a soul stone for you, or a free scheme marker anywhere on the board and some card draw. Usually, all they are 3 pass tokens for your enemy every turn until they start dying off. So the interesting thing about them is when they die, they give a enemy. If they die from an enemy hands, they give adversary apex to the enemy that cannot end while a friendly Lord Cooper can see the model. If a friendly Lord Cooper kills them, he gets a soul stone. And if by some grace of God you get them across the board into the enemy's deployment zone within 4 inches of a table quarter, then you can draw hands to your maximum hand size and drop a ski marker anywhere on the table. I've only done this once in the, 10 to 15 games I've played Cooper, because nobody lets runaways run through their it just doesn't happen. So they're not hard to kill, but they have just enough wounds on them to be annoying for somebody. My best suggestion, aside from a random tech thing that I'll mention later, is use them as a speed bump. Run them into your enemy and use them to stall them getting close to you. Is the best move that I can say. I've seen people that play Lord Cooper that decide that they're just going to shoot their runaway to get a soulstone back for it. But your master only has roughly 15 AP throughout the game. And if you spend roughly 3 of that AP at a minimum killing these things just to get a soulstone back, are you using your master's AP effectively? Probably not. So I would use these guys as just a rough tar pit, and if you can manage to get the tome trigger off where Cooper gets a free attack on them, that's awesome. If not, then just let your enemies deal with them, because they can go and tie things up. They got a 0-inch engagement range, and they start on the enemy or on the center line, so they're already part of the way there. Just use them as a distraction for your opponent. You didn't really pay for them; they're just there for free, and the sooner they die, the better to not give your opponents free pass tokens.
All right, so the verdict is, from the core rule book, I don't see anything that says you must hire totems.
No, you don't have to take your totem.
Yeah.
I've frequently considered not taking a curio with Cry 1
So
when
you can just
it could be
summon
the if it could be the target of a scheme like Vendetta.
Yep.
Curio is a really good Vendetta target because she's expensive but fragile. So if you just don't have her in your crew initially, they can't pick her as a target. But I don't think I'd ever not take these guys. Sure, you give your opponents pass tokens, and maybe I'm very blasé about that because I play summoners. But they are adequate speed bumps. 4 wounds puts them out of one-shot, easy one-shot range. They have to either get lucky or put a moderate card to it to one-shot them for most things. So
I would have rather them been 3 wounds so that Cooper could have one-shot them easily. Them being 4 wounds is right at that level where I'm like, it's too much effort for me to kill it with Cooper, and it's like...
Just run them through a pit trap. Run them through a pit trap. If you want to kill your own dudes, just put them through the wood chipper first, and then when they come out the other side, they'll be just like primed Cooper 1 murder fodder.
I wish that they had made them to where all of your crew could treat them as enemies, but only Lord Cooper gets to treat them as an enemy. Like,
what did these guys do to you?
They ran away.
Well, all right, so let's think briefly on deployment zones though. So if you're on corner, you put them in on the side, right? Like they're already on your flanks. They can start on the center line, right? Like, so you can deploy them in the corners. So then either your opponent is dedicating AP to messing with these guys, or they are just bum rushing your opponent's deployment zone, which they only need to go. Let's see, if they're on the center line in the corner, they in 2 walks, they can get within 4 of the deployment zone. And then
it's 4 inches of the table corner. So
Yeah.
they need to have 3 walks to
the
do
corner.
it.
Yeah.
15 inches
If it was
of the
just the deployment
18.
zone, these guys would be excellent. But it's in the deployment zone and
the
4 inches
corner.
within the table corner, which is really hard to do.
If it was just within
Yeah.
4 inches of the deployment zone and they got all those benefits for it, that would be ridiculous. Like,
So it's 3 walks so generally then it's 3 walks. So on their second, assuming they just run in a straight line with no intervening terrain, they go 10 inches turn 1, then 5, and then they're within 4 of a corner, and then they remove themselves to drop a ski marker and draw cards.
Yeah.
Or your opponent has wasted AP chasing them down or shooting them or going after them. Like, that doesn't seem bad.
So what actually usually happens is you move your runaways forward to try to get them in position because they're just miscellaneous movements, and your opponent got pass tokens for them, so you need to start moving things.
Yeah.
And what your opponent will do is, because he's trying to get into position, he'll usually, instead of walking forward, he'll charge or walk and then charge because they're kind of in the way. And most things that are decent have a 1 inch range. So they'll charge, hit the runaway once, and then do their next walk. And then the next model will activate and charge, kill the runaway, and then walk. And they just do their normal actions of, I'm going to walk forward. They just kind of hit the dude on the way. So it's not, what you can do is you can kind of keep them a little hidden. And the only problem with this tactic is you're giving your opponent 3 pass tokens every turn because you're doing it. You can leave them a little out of the way, like behind buildings and things like that, where they can't just charge them along the way. They have to actually go out of the way to get to them. But then you're looking at turn 3 at the soonest that they're going to be able to try to get into the deployment zone. And keep in mind, escape is not a bonus action. It's a normal
it's just
action.
an action.
So there's a lot of downsides to these guys. And if you manage if you work really hard at it, you can use escape. You can get maybe one if you're lucky too, but you get them for free. They're not something to write home about. They're not the greatest thing in the world, but they can be used as random bumps in the road. And maybe you get lucky and your opponent flips bad and they tie something up for a little bit.
Well, the other thing is the call for help bonus action. Give target enemy distracted. After resolving, Lord Cooper takes a free shot at them, ignoring friendly fire.
Yep.
Like you could potentially free kill them.
Would you like to know the downside to that? 4 inch range with a stat of 4.
Yeah, no, I mean it's not great, but it's potentially your opponent's eating a card, right?
Yeah. So those things come into play, like the call for help. That's why I said you can kind of leave them around hidden behind buildings a little bit, because they can do for call for help in turns 2 or 3 when your opponent wants to keep his cards and not waste it on something like this, or he's already using his cards in the turn. But then, like I said, you've started giving your opponent pass tokens so now in turn 2, if you manage to start doing this type of stuff, he's going to hold those tokens so he gets the first turn on turn 3 when the battle's at its fiercest. And they're a liability a lot of the times.
Yeah,
I'm not saying they're bad. They're just kind of there. Sometimes you need a soul stone, and Cooper can just take a pot shot and kill one of them, and hey, that's awesome. But they're there.
why isn't hunting humans for sport more advantageous? Honestly?
I know, right? What would have been cool is if they gave Cooper a blast and he could shoot into these dudes and blast off of them into others.
No, that would be terrible. Why would you even suggest that? That sounds terrible.
That was the resurrectionist motto, and
It was one of the greatest things that they removed from in 3rd edition. Being able to blast off yourself. What the heck?
All right. Now, to get away from the runaways, one of the best models in the crew, unsurprisingly, is the Malosaurus Rex, which is another one of the core pieces. I will usually always take a Malosaurus Rex. And the reason why is because this thing is a beast of a model, both the model itself and its stats. It's immune to hazardous and severe terrain. So when you're playing around those pit trap markers that you're putting down, he doesn't have to worry about sidestepping around them. He can also move through other units. He's got 12 wounds. He's terrifying 12 and hard to wound, which means that most things aren't going to be able to take him out in an activation. Even dedicated melee damaging masters are going to have a hard time taking a Malosaurus Rex out in one turn. But he comes with a Min 3 Stat 6 Ruthless Attack, the Rampage trigger, where he can do an additional point of damage and move around, or he can heal himself. He potentially has 3 attacks per turn with his pull attack and the trigger on it. He's got an AoE attack all around him that increases in the size of it. He's one of the few models in the game that can get to a 3-inch engagement range after using that ability, where he legitimately has a 3-inch engagement range. A couple of cute little tricks you can do. Don't overlook his Wild Hunt ability. I'll mention several things later in the different things that I take in his crew that the Wild Hunt comes in favor, particularly giving plus crows to anything that he's engaged with. And his charge range is actually 7 inches whenever he charges. So when you have him move with Lord Cooper, Huntmaster, the second edition, you can actually make him charge, even though there's no target, to have him move 7 inches up the board. So there's a couple of cute little things you can do with the Malosaurus. But in general, he's your outstanding tank beater model of the group.
So, quick question. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say, this is what really leverages the beast synergy from Cooper, too.
A lot of people say that. And I'm not going to say that the Malosaurus Rex is not the shining pinnacle on the team, but I think people overlook Uller. Uller is outstanding with the second with the Huntmaster, but I'll get to him in a minute. But yeah, the Malosaurus Rex being able to charge around, getting free attacks out of it, getting shooting at things and making the Malosaurus Rex attack again. That he's really good.
So my question, slightly tangential here, but the Malosaurus Rex, in addition to being Apex, is both a beast and a Fae. Do you, as also a Neverborn player, do you see Malosaurus Rex making it into any of your Neverborn lists?
Yes, I actually take him with Titania because he's just a good model in general. But on top of that, Titania can bring Marcus as a second master, and Marcus can put upgrades onto the Malosaurus Rex.
Yeah, that seems pretty good. You got a flying.
Yep, you can put armor on him. You can
Malosaurus.
Make it to where when he attacks, he applies Adversary Beast when you're working with Neverborn. There's all kinds of tricks that you can do with the Malosaurus Rex with Marcus. He can have butterfly jump. I'm not exactly sure how that works, but he can.
You get little butterfly wings, put them on your T-Rex.
Yeah, basically. But yeah, but that's under Titania. Yes, there's reasons why you would take her with Titania, specifically because that same ability that I mentioned, the Wild Hunt that gives the plus crows. Crows are the trigger in Titania's crew that I think it's called Into Thorns, where they get +1 damage if they're next to a concealing
underbrush marker.
Thank you, the underbrush marker. And for some strange reason, Weird did not build that suit in to most of the crew. So
what
strange.
They didn't build in critical strike on every single model? What?
But it's not critical strike. It's critical strike if a piece of terrain is near you.
I'm sorry. The underbrush markers, where you just get them for free and then can also create more during the course of the game. Yeah, those. Hugely limited resource. Very difficult to get out.
Well, you know what? Weird disagreed with you, Josh, and thought that the Fae crew could use that crow all the time, so they gave us the Malosaurus Rex.
Ugh.
Yeah, good old Malosaurus. It seems like it's interesting because I've not honestly played against a lot of these. I guess, Jeff, we need to play some Lord Cooper games. Mostly it's been spiders and bugs or insects or whatever.
Josh has it ate whatever something of Josh's.
They are arachnids.
Yeah, but
thank you very much.
But yeah, it seems like, okay, the counterplay for Malosaurus is that it's a size 4 defense 4 model? So you're just like, shooter.
So usually that is the case, but the Malosaurus is. If you've ever played Resurrectionists, the Malosaurus Rex plays more like a Resurrectionist. It has high wounds, it has terrifying, and it's hard to wound. So even though it has low defense, you're not going like that. 12 wounds is hard to chip through when you're doing min damage each time, and you have to pass the terrifying to get through it. So he can't be taken down easily.
Chris.
I think it's appropriately resilient for a 10 stone model, unless you tech against it, and you'll know whether or not your opponent has ready access to that particular attack, to Ruthless, to Ignore Hard to Wound, to Min 3. All of those things make the Malosaurus Rex just a very sad guy.
What's interesting about Cooper's crew is if you tech for the Malosaurus Rex, he has 2 different models that he can take that can tie up your opponent or the opponents, the Malosaurus Rex and Model 9, and they have 2 completely different defenses. One of them is high defense with armor 2, the other one's low defense with terrifying 12 and hard to wound. So you got the best of both worlds that you can bring into the crew, which is kind of nice. But obviously, if it's Huntmaster, he's probably bringing the Malosaurus Rex every time.
All right, so talk to us about the 2 best boys of the Apex crew, Artemis and Euler.
So if you bring them, you're going to bring both of them. Artemis and Euler are 12 soulstones for what's probably the best scheme running pair in the entire game. Downside is they're very fragile. We'll talk about Artemis first. She can move 18 inches in a turn, or move 12 inches and interact. She's unimpeded. She can have a 3-4-6 damage track with a ram trigger. And she has Intimidating Roar, which I don't feel gets used enough. You can use it to push your own model 6 inches in the beginning of the game, or you can push enemy minions to give them slow. If you have that Wild Hunt ability on an opponent from the Malosaurus Rex that we mentioned, when you use it on a minion, you can push it through a trap that's there to give a friendly model focus while you're pushing it. It's the crow that's built into it. Then have the Malosaurus Rex push back into engagement with it. And he also has Artemis also has the ability to remove all scheme markers within the 3-inch aura while being able to drop a trigger on its own, so it can completely mess up a scheme that you were planning on running while also putting down something of its own, which is really good. But where she really shines is when she's paired with Euler, who is the wonder dog. A lot of people look at Artemis and think Artemis is the better of the 2 because it has a nimble and can do free walks and gets around the board really quickly. But Artemis can, when teamed, or Euler when teamed with Artemis, can literally move across the entire board in 1 turn. It has by your side, so it can put in discard a card to put in base contact with a non-minion model, which Artemis is a non-minion. He gives hard to wound to everything within 2 inches of itself, which is just phenomenal. He also has the ability that can remove ski markers within 3 inches, but he gives himself focus for each one. Not that great considering his damage track is 1, 2, 3, so focus on him isn't that great. But he can also push a model 4 inches and give that model focus with one of its abilities. But his big thing he has is his attack action. It's only a 1, 2, 3 with staggered, but he has got a hold down trigger on it, which is a crow. So Wild Hunt will help you put this into place. And the hold down trigger allows you to make a ranged attack from another Apex friendly model within range. So you can. This is where both Cooper 1 and Cooper 2 can get additional shots with that huge rifle or with his gun, and get those additional shots off, which is just phenomenal. So when we talked about Cooper 2 earlier, where he can discard a card to make Euler take an attack, that means that when Euler attacks, because it wasn't a trigger that triggered this secondary attack, he can then get the crow trigger to make Cooper attack a second time. So for each AP, you can now attack twice, which is phenomenal.
That seems good. I am curious about though, why is Euler 1 more health and 1 more defense than Artemis?
He's the melee dog because he also technically has hard to wound because he's within his own aura. So the melee dog is supposed to tie things up, while Artemis is supposed to be more the scheme runner. Basically, is kind of the thought process behind it. He was the dog in the dogfighting ring, where Artemis was the one that was in the house.
Gotcha. Sorry, what were you about to say, Josh?
I was going to say, in that single activation, you have now chewed through half your hand, discarding the cards to make having Cooper attack, to make Uller attack, to make Cooper attack, to make Uller attack. Just back and forth forever. It sounds delightful.
Yes, but if your master dies afterwards, it's probably worth it.
Yeah,
not my master, your master.
Yeah, yeah.
Didn't you read the rule of Cooper attack 3 times in a turn and dies? That's just
No, that was Cooper 1.
Oh yeah.
So the way you get around that is the other always take. I always take at least one Vitagi Huntsman. I consider them the utility infielder of the whole group. When he activates, if he's within 2 inches of a friendly Apex model, he gets to draw a card, which kind of helps with that issue. Sometimes I'll take more than one Vitagi Huntsman. But he can also create traps as a bonus action. His melee attack isn't all that great, but his other 2 abilities are actually really neat. He's got a 12-inch gun with a 2/3/5 damage track, and on a crow, once again from Wild Hunt, when he's targeting something with the Balosaurus Rex is engaged with. But keep in mind, he does not ignore engagement. He can trigger a trap to be dropped on the enemy, and this is not creating a trap like his bonus action. It's dropped. So when they shoot something with a crow, you get to put the trap underneath the model, and they are just stuck there inside that pit trap, and they have to take 1 damage and 1 injured to do anything while they're in it, which is great.
Oh yeah, because it's dropped. Yeah, although it is artwork fail though, like that he has a clockwork revolver, but the artwork is like a 8mm or like a giant 10mm grenade launcher. It's huge. Like this giant gun he has, definitely not a clockwork revolver.
Yeah, well, I don't know what he's hunting with that unless he's going fishing and just lobbing a stick of dynamite into the pool and waiting for everything to float up to the surface.
I've actually got the models in front of me right now. I'm looking to see.
So maybe
that one.
So maybe it's a bear trap launcher with an underslung revolver. Because he's holding it over his shoulder, right? And there's a small gun on the bottom. I bet that's what it actually is.
One of them
doesn't make any sense, but
one of them actually does have a revolver. It's just a pistol, and one of them doesn't have a gun at all. He's just holding a spear and a knife.
Weird.
Oh wait, he's got a revolver in his belt. Wait, does this one have a revolver? Nope, he just has a grenade launcher. You're right.
Yeah. The traditional weapon of the Vitagi Huntsman, the grenade launcher.
I mean, it is what it is. But that might pair with his. The reason why I call them the utility infielder is they're on the hunt ability is actually really good and really underutilized. So when you hit something with it, you resolve a series of effects in order of what you do. So if it's one of your beasts, which you'll use this in the beginning a lot, you push the target 4 inches away from you, and then the target gains adversary apex because all beasts are also living. But do you really care that you gain adversary apex? Not really. If you're going against things like, to go down the line, beasts get pushed 4 inches. Constructs suffer 2 irreducible damage, which is great because most constructs have armor. If you're living, you gain adversary apex. And if you're undead, you gain injured 2. So if you're going against a Von Stuck crew, you can do 2 irreducible damage and injured 2, which is awesome. And these things really work. They do a whole lot of good. The problem with this ability is you can only do it to the same model once per turn. You can't do it more than once per activation to the same model. So you can't just do 4 irreducible damage to that valedictorian that's coming to you and make it injured 4. That's not allowed.
Oh, so beasts don't have the living tag. Living is the tag for humanoid things that
are
alive.
Lose
yeah, no, beasts aren't living.
You are
that's
correct.
why That's why sandworms can't take leadline coat.
Yeah, and
Leadline
beasts drop corpse marker. Like they're treated.
Yep,
Yeah.
you were right. So you just get to push them now. You don't even have to put the adversary apex on them.
Yeah.
But there are some things in the game that you do get to, like Von Stuck's crew do have undead and construct and things like that. So there are some things that you get to double up on.
Yep.
But yeah, that's the core crew. Usually it includes the Malisaurus, Artisan Uller, and at least one Vitagi Huntsman. And then I pepper in my my tech picks as needed. The difference that I'd say in the two of these is in a best case scenario where all the stars align and you always flip severe for some reason. We also call these Josh flips. Cooper 1 will do a nitro shot, focus, a nitro shot, and then use explosive ordnance with foul mouth motivation with a model near it for a total of 15 damage with max damage across all those attacks. If you switch out the explosive ordnance, if you're somehow in range to do it where you can do nitro shot, focus, nitro shot, and a charge, you can get it up to 19 damage. Cooper 2 can force a T-Rex to charge. The Rex attacks, then Cooper attacks, discards a card for the Rex to attack. Cooper attacks again, discards a card for the Rex attack, and then lays down a trap to protect yourself. You can get up to 25 damage. Like, now, that's all stars align. Everything is perfect on your turn for Lord Cooper, and things go great, and you don't have a hand afterwards. In your worst case scenario where you're engaged, I threw in a 7 Soulstone Autumn Knight because they are armor 1 and hard to wound, so they're kind of hardy models. And your damage flips hate you, and any models that you need to get to are 8 inches away. Your only option with Cooper 1 is to attack 3 times with his maim attack, which will do 3 damage if you hit each time. And you can't do your bonus attack to help you in any way. Cooper 2 has all the options of being able to attack with a skinning knife and push your model away from you towards a trap marker and then shoot it 2 times. It's still only 3 damage, but you're not engaged anymore. Then you can lay a trap to protect you between you. You can choose to disengage towards the support model, and if it's a beast, obey it to charge the model that's next to you. You can choose to disengage, put a pit trap between you, and then shoot at the model 2 times. Like, there are things that you can do where Cooper 1 in a worst case scenario is just stuck there hitting a model for 1 damage each time, or 2 if the model isn't defended or it doesn't have like armor or something, but that's not a normal situation.
Yeah, I noticed something conceptually similar with McMorning too. Where he just had a lot more options. Like, McMorning 1 could delete a dude, no problem. But McMorning 2 just had a wider range of things. And I don't know if it's the support master versus combat master distinction in this case, where support masters just typically tend to have more tricks, rather than just a single ability that you want to use a bunch of times. So this is like you said, the support version of Cooper, and he's bringing a support toolkit as opposed to just a straight murder stick that he points at people and murders them.
And even then, he wasn't a straight murder master either. I mean, with 2 shots, if he did max damage with it, he could do 14 damage in a turn.
14 damage is a lot of damage, and it's also 14 damage in two 7 damage chunks, which is arguably the best form of damage.
True, but I'm never going to say that his gun is bad. I don't like how disjointed his kit is where the ranges are so different from each other. Where, like, I can't do a nitro shot and then shoot in with the shockwave attack. Like, you can't do the 2 of them together. And
for sure.
It makes it very odd. And this one is a lot better where I can shoot with the hunters, or I can tell a beast near me to charge. It's a 6-inch range, and the 12-inch range on the bow. So if it's within range of me being able to tell it to charge, then I can probably shoot at the model too. So I tell it to charge, it gets an attack. The hunter's bow, I get to shoot and then make another attack from it. I can heal the model if I need to off of a ram. There's like so many options that you have. A lot of them are suit dependent, but it works better as a whole. And between stealth and his traps, he's a lot harder to take down than the original one.
He doesn't have that one glaringly obvious weakness of stand next to this guy and he's hosed.
Pretty much.
So that's like, okay, so 1 Vitagi Huntsman, 1 Malisaurus Rex, Artemis and Euler, your 0 to 3 runaways. How many stones are usually taken for Cooper?
I typically stay this way with most masters. I only like to take around 3 to 4 stones with most masters, unless it's a summoner and I need then I'll go less with models and more into the. I can get models later by summoning them. I kind of subscribe to the Alex Schmidt line of thinking of the models you bring resources to your game for you, and AP is a resource just like everything else. So while granted having a stone is a good idea, and that's why I bring 3 or 4 of them, having 5 or having 10 AP spread throughout the turn is probably more useful than an additional 4 or 5 stones. So that's just my way of thinking when I go into things. But stones are useful for a lot of things. Plus, you can gain them back by shooting a runaway if he needs to.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree. I've always gone typically low soul stones. I'd rather have models, but okay. But so that puts you at about say like 31, 32 points or stones for that. So it's like a little over half, 2/3.
Yep.
So like, what is like I assume the rest of your crew then is like seasoned to taste from a whole slew of things. In the doc, you've got a whole bunch listed here.
I do.
Do you want
to take a break and then we can go through the? Yep. All right.
There's too many here to talk about all at once. So hang with us. There's quite a few potential tech picks, which Jeff will regale us with. So stick with us. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back. Let's hear all about the tech picks. So we've got 28-ish stones to play with. What is going into that, and when are you picking which things?
You mean 18?
Yes, 18. Math. Yes.
Yes, math is good. So we'll start with the new model, the Empyrean Eagle. It's a fast scheme runner that can shoot without needing line of sight, which is all cool and everything because it's good on the edges. However, I think this model was more designed for a Marcus crew because in this crew, between Artemis and Uller, you don't really need an additional scheme runner. They are really good as it is, and I have a different tech pick later that can accomplish schemes better. So I don't usually take the Empyrean Eagle with me whenever I come. That's more of a taste thing for me. But maybe when the model comes out, I'll love them to death. But and Marcus, where he can add different things to them and make them better, it's probably a lot better than what they are in this crew. So that's my thoughts on the Eagle. If you have any questions about that,
the Austere and Twig Redux, you mean?
Yeah, I mean, like movement 7 though for 5 points seems like a pretty good scheme runner with flight.
Yeah, but as an example, you get all that good stuff plus stealth with Marcus, and they become outstanding scheme runners. For you already have models that can go 18 inches of the board. The Eagle doesn't. I mean, and Artemis and Uller, or at least Artemis ignores severe terrain, so you're not really too concerned about that. So some people will take them, but with me, I want Artemis and Uller around because they're multifaceted models. I have used the Eagle to sit around and pepper people, but its stat 4 on its attack is kind of meh, so it doesn't usually hit. So that's and for anyone that's asking, I don't use the Harpooner. I don't think they're very good, so we're going to skip the Harpooner and his crew because I just don't believe that they're good in either of the crews that they belong in, either this or EVS. They're just kind of not good models. They're too expensive.
All right. So who are you actually picking then? So we've covered 2 that you don't particularly like. Who is actually coming in for that coveted 18 points?
So sometimes that these are all tech picks. It all depends on strat schemes, what the board looks like, and things like that. I'll sometimes bring in a Crypsis Core, and that's because their Beneath the Leaves ability is just amazing paired with traps. They can stand between two traps, or at least they can stand within 3 inches of a trap, and they extend that trap's aura outward for all enemy not models, but not friendly models, which means it kind of defends itself with that trap nearby, making a severe hazardous aura of 1 damage and 1 injured. And you don't want to go in on them because that aura is around them, but you need to deal with them because they can have a 24-inch attack with a 4, 5, 6 damage track with their guns, and they get the double critical strike trigger because if you have a condition on you, they get an automatic suit of their choice built in, and all you have to do is have another ram, and you're getting shot to the face with 4 damage. So men 4. They can be really good. Their downsides are they are heavily reliant on sightlines. So if you don't have good sightlines on the board, you're probably going to leave them at home. But they do ignore friendly fire and they ignore cover with their shot. So the only thing they don't ignore is concealment, which they usually have a focused shot that they're using at the same time because they have nothing better to do with their actions other than shoot their rifle. They can also remove ski markers from a pretty long distance away, and you can't tie them up in melee because they're quick retreat bonus actions. So they're decent models, and it forces your opponent can't just sit back at the other end of the board and wait for you because they're going to get picked off by this dude's sniper shots, and they do hurt. So the other model is a lover take model, and oddly enough, he's model 9. The reason why he's lover take is he's a very good defensive model with high defense and the armor of 2. The problem is that he's only 7 wounds for a 9 soulstone model, which means that if they ignore armor, he dies very quickly. The good things that I can say about him is that he can pair nicely with the Rex. He gets a execute trigger on his twirling blades. So if he charges into something that the Malosaurus Rex is engaged with, each attack that he does can be an execute attack automatically. And he's surprisingly fast. He can move around the field very quickly, being able to teleport to models with his throw knife on a severe. And he can also use his burst of steep speed to kind of do a semi leap. So he's quick, but sometimes if you are able to counter tech against him, he dies very quickly.
Yeah, I imagine though, as you pointed out before, if you're expecting them to take Cooper 2, the likelihood of you specifically teching for anti-armor, not as high.
That's true. And I think Model 9 will see more play with Cooper 2 now, because in Cooper 1, he came with armor, and Model 9 was his premier flagship henchman that came with his crew. So you were like, oh, armor 2 model, armor 1 master, like I should probably bring some anti-armor. But now that you have to worry about the beasts and they're the big worry in the crew, I think Model 9 might see some more play.
The teching against armor is probably even more so because of the existence of Calypso. You always want to tech against armor against an Explorer Society crew because fucking Calypso.
It's funny you mentioned Calypso, because my next pick is actually Dr. Beeb and Calypso. And
how many points is that? The two of them together?
It's 12.
Yeah, it's just 12.
Okay, so that's cost as Euler and Artemis.
I mean, so that's basically of your 18 that you're playing with. So you're potentially going Beeb, Calypso, and an upgrade or extra stones, or you're going Model 9 and one of these other models. Is that
usually it depends on the strats and schemes.
Okay.
Sometimes I'll throw in a sandworm or the damned. I'll get to those later. But
okay.
If I bring Calypso, I'm also bringing Dr. Beeb, and typically in the first action, Beeb will activate and he'll drop a scheme marker because he can do that with his beeps and sweeps. All you need is a tome.
You mean scrap marker?
scrap marker. All he needs is a tome, which automatically gets changed to a 9 of tomes, which is exactly what he needs to drop scrap marker. So a 1 of tomes becomes a 9 of tomes for him. And then once he drops that scrap marker, he just ejects himself out of Calypso and will stand around that scrap marker and focus and do all other forms of good stuff that he needs to back in the back. While Calypso then walks forward and picks up a runaway. And then the runaway drives Calypso running around the field and becomes not useless.
It's just this guy in a loincloth driving in a giant robot.
Yeah, but the runaway's actions actually become useful at that point. So, like, he's just, I'll start by first running the runaway back, and then I'll have Beeb drop the scrap marker, and then jump out of Calypso, and then Calypso will activate and go walk forward and pick up the runaway. And starting on turn 2, and if you destroy Calypso, it's okay, because Beeb will just make a new Calypso, jump inside, and then I'll go right back to bringing Calypso up the board. And it's not like, even though Calypso only has a move of 4, it's not like he's slow, because he can move 12 inches in a turn.
He's not slow. It's deceptively fast. I have played against Calypso a bunch of times, and it's stupid fast, and you don't think it's going to be, and then you're like, oops. Here it is.
And what's really cool is when Calypso blows up, he takes up most of the life of the runaway, and then you just shoot the runaway and you get a soul stone.
It's dumb.
It's thematic, because
it is thematic.
He jumped in this machine and he's like, I'm free, and then the enemy killed it, and then Cooper's like, no, you're not. Boom, shot to the head. So I love that combination, just because it makes these runaways actually fun, and people are like, wait, what are you doing? And I'm like, yep, it's completely legal.
Christ, what an asshole.
The other thing, and these next 2 models are kind of big with Cooper, and particularly Cooper 2. You would never take them in Cooper 1. But if there's a lot of severe terrain on the board, I'll bring the Sandworm in. He is a massive hulk of a monster with good damage and potential for 3 attacks a turn, and he can put up his own hazardous aura. People don't usually like playing with him when there's sparse terrain on the board, but he's still move 5, which is the average for most things, and actually above average for Explorer Society. So he can still walk across the board. He can still get pushed by your models, because he is a beast. So he can still move around the board even if you don't bury him. He just doesn't get that extra attack. And in a pinch, you always have the option of having him jump up in a pit track marker and suffering the downsides of that. But sometimes it's something that you may need to do. So the Sandworm is an option. The Damned is also really damned good. Wah, wah, wah. He's got a great attack. He has an awesome damage spread with that attack. He's got a 6-inch breath weapon that's doesn't suffer from any. It's not a gun of any kind. And when Cooper does his little heal, the new Cooper 2 from his ranged attack, it triggers the Chronicle effect, so that you can do an additional point of damage to the thing that's around that model. So those 2 models are also really good. They're both beasts, so Cooper can make them do additional attacks, and they just pair really well with them. Unfortunately, Cooper 2 did not get the Beastmaster ability, so you do have to pay 1 Soulstone extra for them. And my last 2 that I have to talk about, they don't necessarily have to come together, but Mr. Nagatoro is an obey henchman, which is just good to begin with. And when he obeys models, they get a +1 to their attack actions because of Cooper's ability, which is just good. Any kind of obeys are really awesome. And his backroom dealings ability is also a really nice ability to have, where you can just look at your opponent's hand. But he pairs well with the Night Silk Creeper, who is also a beast. He's fast, can potentially go up to 25 inches in a turn with jumping to a web and moving. He can do 3 attacks in a turn as well if he has webs around him. And if he uses the web strand ability to something that's stuck inside a trap, the average movement of most models within a faction is 5. So he reduces that down to 3 with staggered. So they're only moving 1.5 inches, which doesn't help them to clear the trap. So they can't clear the trap in one go, which gives them basically injured 2 and 2 damage when they try to get out of a trap, which kind of gets them stuck there. Plus, between Nagatoro and the Night Silk Creeper, they can do a lot of poison shenanigans that other people can look into. But these are more fun options, but they are kind of fun to take together and running up a flank.
So what are you... Okay, so it sounds like the packages are Beeb and Calypso's one.
Yep.
And then the other is some combination of like 2 of the other models you just mentioned. Like, when are you picking which? Like, what's your thought process there?
So if it's a really heavy scheme pool, it'll
like schemes.
Yeah, like running schemes, needing to take a scheme or needing to go
interact heavy.
Yep.
Okay.
Carrying a lodestone, things like that. I'll usually take Beeb and Calypso because they're usually very good at that. And maybe the Empyrean Eagle with it, because the Empyrean Eagle is smooth 7 and can get between things very easily. If it's a place where I have to take and hold a point, I'll usually do something like a Crypsis Core and usually like a Crypsis Core, and then more Vatagi Huntsman, put out more of those traps and things like that. If it's a kill heavy pool, I'll take a Sandworm and the Damned because they're both very massive beater models. And now my Malosaurus Rex is not the only thing you have to worry about. You've got to worry about Cooper, the Sandworm, the Damned, and the Malosaurus Rex, all of which can wreck your whole world in combination with each other. And then if I want to have some fun with the poison, I'll have Uller and Artemis run up one flank, while Nagatoro and the Creeper run up the other flank, and then the 2 of them together, and then my core base of Cooper, the Malosaurus Rex, and the Vatagi Huntsman will take up the middle. And you can try to go after Uller and Artemis, but now you have Nagatoro and the Night Silk Creeper, and they're not slouches. They can really wreck your world if you try to send a simple scheme runner after them to stop them. So you got 3 flanks that you have to worry about, and the only one that you can easily do is Artemis and Uller, but Uller can discard a card to go to the other side of the board. So it's a hard thing to account for.
That makes sense. So when are you taking Cooper? Like, if we were playing to steal a concept from Third Foe Wars, the pool party concept, like where is Cooper going? Which strategies, which type of missions?
So it's kind of blasé to say, but Cooper is a generalist master. He can play into anything. I don't think he's necessarily the best at anything, but
I mean, he's not Nexus, so
no, he's not Nexus, and he's not new Jedza, which is like extraordinarily killy while still being hard to kill. He's not he's not going to be the super scheme runners, and the 2 he is very good at running schemes. But Artemis and Uller can be taken into any crew, and they're the ones that really do the bulk of the work there.
God, it sounds like you never take Cooper.
It's not that. It's just maybe explorers have a wealth of fun things to pick from. But what I'll take Cooper in is typically something where I get one of those odd scheme pools where it's like, hey, your strat is you have to go. I don't even have the strats and schemes in front of me, but it'll be like a schemy strat where I've got to go take control over, or like corrupted ley lines.
Your turf wars, your corrupted ley lines.
And then the scheme pool is all about killing. Where like I need to have models that move around quickly, but I also need to have models where I can kill you. And it's for those tournament games where the tournament organizer just went into the Malifaux app and pressed random without thinking about it. That's when I'm going to take Cooper into it because he can play into it and accomplish all things. Maybe not the singular best as some of the other masters, but he is versatile enough that he can do all of them.
I don't know. That does sound like one of those handcrafted scheme pools where you're trying to pick a balance of different things so you can't have a singular focused, oh, everything's murder, oh, everything's interacting. So that might come up more frequently than you'd think.
Yeah, well, stranger things have happened.
I mean, it seems not bad.
But in general, I didn't like as I mentioned, I didn't like the other Cooper. I felt he was very focused on like, hey, this Cooper is designed to kill things, and he was just kind of okay at it. And his crew was designed to be like, oh, hey, or I completely skipped over the Vatagi's huntsman ability. If you are damaged by a pit trap within 8 inches of him, a model in your crew gets to make a free shot at the model that got damaged by it. Sorry.
Seems like a bit of an oversight.
Bit of an oversight there. But his crew is very good at holding points, where he can get to a point, he can put up traps all around, where if you want to come in, you're going to have to deal with those traps or you're going to kill yourself. Because coming in, if you charge, I don't care what master you're using, if you charge your master in and you give it 4 or 5 damage plus injured from coming into a pit trap and deciding to go all in on something, you may kill my Malosaurus Rex or Model 9 or something that I've stuck out there for you, but your master's going to die too, because now it's at like defense 1 and it's going to die.
Yeah, that seems good.
So, sounds real mean, hard to play against, lots of very nasty things. What counterplay do you have against Cooper 2 in terms of both crew building and in terms of actual play? What would you do to stop him if you knew you were going up to face him?
So with Cooper 2, you want to take out his large beasts quickly. An inexperienced player is usually going to run their Malosaurus Rex in to get it killed off quickly. Better players will do something else to draw you in. Sometimes they'll use Model 9 to put him out there, because with Cooper 2, the Malosaurus Rex is way more of a key piece than Model 9 is. So I'll stick Model 9 out there expecting you to come in after him. Then I'll have the Malosaurus come in afterwards to do the cleanup. The big thing is to watch out for that sandworm, because it can pop up and it can ruin days. I've had a lot of times where somebody went all in with their master on the Malosaurus Rex, and we're like, haha, the Malosaurus Rex is dead now. And then the sandworm comes out and eats their master, because the sandworm can also do min 3 attacks that I get to do multiple times with Cooper shooting at you. So those are things that you need to watch out for. But one of the big things, no matter which Cooper you're playing, is you want to take out Artemis and Uller very quickly. They're there for a reason. And usually that reason is going to be running scheme markers. They're not hard to kill, but they're very fast, and you need to work on taking them out. One of them has, I think, 6 wounds, and the other one has 7. So you should dedicate some resources in trying to take them out. And your typical 5-cost scheme runner is not going to do it. They will tear that thing to pieces, because they are enforcers, and even though they both cost 6, they can easily take out little 5 and 6 soulstone scheme runners that are on the edges. So whoever that stupid Torakage that you're running out on the edges, it's going to get eaten by the dogs. So dedicate at least a beater towards taking them out.
Or guns. What I heard is guns.
Guns. Who uses guns, honestly?
Outcasts.
We Westers are a more civilized lot. We fight with filthy claws and ghosts.
What's a ghost?
Those things that consume the entirety of your crew.
Come on, Jeff. We just had Halloween.
Yeah, ghosts for yesterday. They're not allowed to come anymore. You have to field elves and turkeys now.
Yeah, only birds.
Only birds.
How about giant mecha birds?
Starting up your Only Birds website.
Oh man! All right, cool. So at the end of this, I guess coming back to the question I was thinking from earlier, like, are you ever going to take Cooper 1?
I will not, because I do not like him. I'm not going to say that he's a bad master. I don't like his Rube Goldberg machine of like putting down the traps and having to rely on them to have Cooper get extra shots with his rifle and hoping that rifle is the thing that takes things out. And the bad thing about that is when you run into a crew that makes a lot of concealing terrain, it just makes Cooper's day way worse. And I don't like Cooper 1. So other people really like Cooper 1 and will call me crazy. I don't like him, and I don't like the way that he plays. I prefer Cooper 2, and he just works in my playstyle way better than the first one did.
Fair enough. All right, well, there you have it, folks. When you hear this episode, let us know if you think Jeff is wrong.
How wrong you think Jeff is?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure you're going to get a lot of replies to that. They're going, Cooper 1's the greatest.
They wouldn't even ask what the question was or what Jeff said. They'll just chime in with pointing out that Jeff is wrong.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well,
are we talking about our fans,
fair.
or are we talking about Herman?
Wait, are you saying Herman isn't our biggest fan?
Herman is our fan. We miss you in baby jail there, Herman. Hopefully you get paroled one of these days.
I could only imagine how this podcast would have gone if Herman were here. And I'm like, I don't really like Cooper. What? You're crazy. He's the best. He just argues with me to argue.
I mean, that's what the listeners want to hear. That's what I think. But
we're not here for mild takes. We're not here for cold takes.
I have one more tip to our fans about Cooper. Don't be stupid like me, where I took the sandworm and decided to use this hazardous aura when I was playing against Herman's. I used this hazardous aura when I was playing against Herman's Frontier army, and it specifically does not say anything about friendly or enemy. It says Frontier models are not affected by it. So it didn't affect his crew at all, but my guys couldn't go in it. It was not a fun day. I was like, hey, you should read your cards before you use abilities.
That is the second worst thing I've ever seen done with a sandworm.
That's pretty funny, though.
Yeah. He was like, I'm going to charge your sandworm. And I'm like, okay, you take a point of damage. He's like, no, I'm not. I'm Frontier. But if you come near me, you're going to take a point of damage. I'm like, crap.
Like, shoot. Nice. All right, cool. Well, there we have it. I think that's a wrap for another episode of the Capital City Crew podcast. Thanks for listening. We'll be back in your feed soon. Let us know if there's any topics you want us to talk about, be it masters or just general topics or really anything having to do with Malifaux. So talk to you all soon.
Catch you later.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Capital City Crew podcast. We hope you tune in next time.